So, imagine stepping into a boxing ring, right? The digital scale just flashed exactly 154 pounds.
Right.
You're physically prepared. You've done all the road work. You know the exact parameters of the super welterweight division. But then you look across the canvas, and you just have to look up.
Oh, yeah. Way up.
Way, way up. Because the guy standing across from you, who literally weighs exactly the same as you do, is 6'5".
It's insane. It really is.
Welcome, everyone, to today's deep dive. We've got a really custom-tailored breakdown for you today. The mission here is to look at this highly specific, incredibly intense, strategic breakdown and prediction we have for the upcoming boxing match between Fundora and Thurman.
Yeah, and the sources we have for this they're fascinating. We've got these detailed scouting reports, the tactical keys to victory, and, the actual weigh-in stats.
Right. And what those stats point to is this massive clash between an absolute physical anomaly on one side and a really seasoned veteran on the other. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the sheer physical reality of Fundora's frame. Because, a 6'5" fighter at 154 pounds, that just completely breaks the traditional geometry of the sport, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. When you read the scouting reports, it literally forces a double take.
Yeah, you think it's a typo.
Exactly. Because at 154 pounds, a human body stretched to that kind of height possesses virtually no excess bulk. Like, none. It is entirely composed of just bone, sinew, leverage, and length. The source material explicitly calls this a freak of nature matchup.
Wow. Freak of nature.
Yeah, and looking at the structural dimensions, that's not an exaggeration at all. It's a literal biological outlier.
But, logically, if you have that kind of skeletal frame and that immense reach, you just use it to your advantage in the most obvious way possible, right?
You'd think so, yeah.
Like, you establish a jab, you stay way out on the outside, and you just keep the other guy at the end of a very long stick. You build a fortress, right? And you just don't let anyone inside the gates. Why wouldn't a fighter with those dimensions just operate entirely as a sniper?
Well, what's fascinating here is how traditional boxing logic applies to distance management and why it assumes the taller fighter always wants to stay on the outside.
Right.
In a textbook scenario, a high center of gravity and exceptionally long limbs mean your outer orbit is basically your kingdom. You use the geometry of the ring to ensure the shorter fighters simply cannot cross the distance without paying a massive, massive physical toll.
Because they have to do so much work just to get close.
Exactly. The shorter fighter has to expend tremendous amounts of energy. They're slipping, they're rolling, rushing in just to get into striking range. And right when they finally do, the taller fighter just, takes a half step back, reestablishes that jab, and resets the whole trap.
Right, because distance equals safety when you're the taller guy. You control the real estate.
You weaponize the space between you. That's the textbook approach. But the scouting reports on Fundora, they completely shatter that assumption.
Really?
Yeah. He possesses this undeniable outer orbit superiority, this absolute freakish structural advantage, and yet the strategic analysis points to something entirely counterintuitive.
Okay.
He literally throws the textbook out the window. He doesn't fight like a sniper at all.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because despite being 6'5", the sources highlight that Fundora utilizes a phone booth style of fighting.
Yeah, which is just wild.
Right. And for you listening, think about what that analogy implies. A phone booth, it means fighting in extremely, extremely close quarters. Like shoulder to shoulder, chest to chest, digging hooks to the body, constantly fighting for inside control.
It's a style that's traditionally built for stocky fighters, guys with a really low center of gravity.
Exactly. So I have to push back here. Because why on earth would a towering, lanky giant willingly give up his spatial advantage to fight in a phone booth? Doesn't he just, smother his own punches by getting that close?
Well, you would think so, but that assumes he fights on the inside the exact same way a shorter man does, which he doesn't.
Ooh, okay.
By stepping into that phone booth, Fundora creates an absolute biomechanical nightmare for his opponent. Let's look at the mechanics of how a tall man actually generates power and leverage in close quarters.
Okay, lay it out for me.
He doesn't try to crouch down and match the shorter fighter's center of gravity. That would be a mistake. Instead, he folds that massive frame forward and basically uses his skeletal structure as a framing tool.
A framing tool.
Yeah, he uses his incredibly long forearms and his elbows to control the opponent's posture.
So he's essentially putting a lid on them. Like he's using his height to push down rather than stay away.
Precisely. He leans heavily on the opponent. He makes them physically carry his body weight. Think about it. If you're the shorter fighter, you've spent your entire training camp practicing how to slip past a long jab to get inside, right?
Yeah.
Because your brain tells you the inside is your safe zone.
Right, you think, if I get past the reach, his arms are too long to hit me, I'm safe.
Exactly. You expect open air once you breach the perimeter.
But instead, you just find this suffocating cage of limbs.
Yes, a cage of limbs. He weaponizes his height by leaning his chest on your neck and shoulders, forcing your legs to carry his entire 154 pounds while he throws these really short chopping punches.
Ouch.
And because his arms are so long, he literally can't throw traditional horizontal hooks on the inside. So instead, he throws downward arcing uppercuts and these weird chopping shots from totally bizarre, unpredictable angles.
Wow. That sounds physically exhausting for the opponent, but also psychologically terrifying. I mean, you fight so hard to get into that phone booth, thinking it's your absolute tactical key to victory, only to realize the giant basically locked the door behind you.
Oh, totally.
You're trapped in a spatial reality that violates all your training camp preparations.
It completely scrambles the opponent's threat assessment. They are suddenly taking heavy damage in the exact zone where they were conditioned to feel safe. And this forces us to look at exactly who is stepping into that phone booth with him.
Right, Thurman.
Exactly. Because Fundora is bringing this bizarre smothering style right to Thurman.
Which brings a completely different set of variables into the equation.
Yeah.
The sources frame Thurman's side of the matchup around two really massive conflicting forces. You've got his veteran experience on one hand and his potential ring rust on the other.
The huge conflict.
Right, because if you're dealing with a suffocating cage of limbs on the inside, you'd think a veteran would have the toolkit to survive it. But ring rust changes the math entirely.
It really is the ultimate dilemma of the inactive fighter. I mean, veteran experience is arguably the most powerful intangible asset in the sport. It means your brain is basically a supercomputer that has processed every single angle, every feint, every rhythm 1,000 times over.
They've seen it all.
Right. A veteran doesn't panic when they get smothered in the phone booth. They know exactly how to breathe, how to pace themselves, how to read the micro-expressions of an opponent's shoulders to anticipate the very next punch.
But knowing what to do and physically executing it are two very different things, aren't they?
Completely different.
So how much can veteran experience actually save you when your timing is compromised by ring rust? Doesn't the phone booth style specifically punish a fighter who is, like, even half second too slow?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we start to really see the profound danger of ring rust, especially against inside pressure. Because ring rust isn't about forgetting how to throw a combination or losing your technique.
Right, you don't forget how to box.
Exactly. It is a neurological lag. Think of it like driving an older car where the steering wheel has a half-inch of play, or like a dead zone in it.
Oh, man. That's a great way to put it. You turn the wheel, but there's that tiny, terrifying delay before the tires actually grip the road and the car moves.
Exactly. The driver's mind knows the exact angle of the turn. Thurman's veteran experience will recognize the shifts in Fundora's weight. He will absolutely see the downward chopping punch coming.
But his hands won't move fast enough.
Right, because if there is ring rust, the synaptic pathways from the brain to the muscle just aren't firing at peak optimum speed. The steering wheel has a dead zone. A slip that used to take 1/10 of a second now takes 2/10. And the phone booth style is the ultimate, unforgiving test of that exact neurological speed.
Because on the outside, if your steering wheel has a little play in it, you have distance to buffer the mistake. You might catch a glancing blow, or you just have the real estate to take a quick step back and reset.
But in the phone booth, the distance a punch travels is measured in literally inches. The margin for error is virtually zero. You're dealing with rapid-fire, close-quarters combat where reactions absolutely must be instantaneous and automatic.
There's no time to think.
None. If Thurman's supercomputer brain says slip left, but his rusted timing delays the bodily movement by even a fraction of a heartbeat, he is taking a brutal, heavy shot from a 6'5" anomaly.
Wow.
Fundora's unrelenting close-quarters pressure doesn't just exploit ring rust, it accelerates the exposure of it. It forces the veteran to make 100 split-second decisions a minute, just constantly stress-testing that fragile connection between the brain and the body.
It's like forcing the internal computer to constantly reboot while under a DDoS attack.
That's exactly it.
Which leads us directly into the culmination of the tactical breakdown we have in the sources. You have this physical anomaly fighting this smothering inside game against a veteran who's battling the neurological lag of ring rust. And the scouting reports don't just guess at an outcome here. They offer a very, very precise prediction.
They do.
The sources predict a round 9 TKO for Fundora, and they specifically characterize the fight as a grueling battle of attrition. So what does this all mean? Like, why specifically round 9? What is the functional difference between a quick knockout and this grueling battle of attrition they're predicting.
This raises an important question about the biomechanics of combat and honestly the true nature of exhaustion. Because when you see an early knockout, say in round 1 or 2, you are usually looking at a structural failure.
Meaning what, exactly?
It is a perfectly timed shot that hits the nervous system exactly right, basically shutting off the lights before the fighter even breaks a sweat. It relies on explosive speed, the element of surprise, or an opponent just making a massive positional miscalculation.
Ah, okay, so the fighter wakes up structurally fine, just shocked that they got caught. It's like a sudden power outage.
Precisely. But a grueling battle of attrition that results in a late-round technical knockout is something far more systemic. It is a total metabolic collapse.
A metabolic collapse. That sounds brutal.
It is. It is the slow, agonizing erosion of the human body's capacity to function under extreme duress. And this is where Fundora's specific phone booth strategy against Thurman's potential rust paints a very specific and honestly painful picture over 24 minutes of combat.
It's the compound interest of physical and mental exhaustion. Let's break down the actual mechanics of what happens to Thurman's body over those 9 rounds.
Yeah, so in the phone booth, Thurman is not just dodging punches. We talked earlier about Fundora framing and leaning, right?
Yeah, making him carry his weight.
Exactly. For 3 minutes around, Thurman is carrying the dead weight of a much taller man. He is experiencing continuous isometric resistance, his neck is being pulled down, his shoulders are carrying an external load, and his legs are firing constantly just to maintain his own posture so he doesn't fall over.
Oh man, the physical toll of that is immense. It just drains the oxygen straight out of the muscles.
It creates a massive unpayable oxygen debt. Lactic acid builds up in the quads and the deltoids. The arms start to feel like lead.
Right.
Now, combine that crushing physical drain with the immense mental exhaustion of fighting off the ring rust.
Because he has to focus so hard.
Right. Thurman has to expend double the baseline mental energy just to force his rusted timing to keep up with that chaotic inside pressure.
Right, because he can't just rely on pure instinct if the instinct is lagging. He has to consciously command his body to move, which burns even more mental glucose.
Exactly. Now, for the first few rounds, the veteran experience probably holds the line. Thurman might use his incredible savvy to survive, to deflect, to roll with the punches. He patches the holes as they appear.
He survives the early storm.
But attrition is a mathematical certainty in this style of fight. By round 6, the legs lose their spring. By round 7, the hands drop an inch because the shoulders are just flooded with lactic acid.
What happens to the ring rust then?
That rusted timing, that dead zone in the steering wheel we talked about, it gets exponentially worse because the biological engine is simply running out of gas.
The delay between thought and action stretches from a fraction of a heartbeat to a full beat. And in the phone booth, a full beat is basically an eternity.
Which is exactly why a late TKO manifests the way it does. The referee doesn't step in because the fighter is unconscious on the canvas. The referee steps in because the biological system has completely seized up.
They just can't respond anymore.
Right. The fighter is taking unanswered damage, the reflexes are gone, and they can no longer intelligently defend themselves. So that prediction of round 9, it isn't an arbitrary number picked out of a hat. It is a calculation. It is an estimation of exactly how long a veteran's cardiovascular system and rusted reflexes can physically withstand the claustrophobic, heavy pressure of a giant fighting on the inside.
It basically takes about 9 rounds or 27 minutes of scheduled combat for the sheer relentless volume of that isometric pressure to fully override the veteran's willpower and experience. It's a calculated, systemic collapse.
It is the ultimate victory of attrition over experience. The physical anomaly doesn't even need to be faster or land a lucky punch. He just needs to turn the fight into a grueling mathematical equation that the veteran simply doesn't have the metabolic currency to solve.
Wow. So to pull all of this together and just kind of recap the incredible tactical clash we've unpacked today, we're looking at a literal freak of nature matchup where a 6'5" fighter at 154 pounds essentially discards the traditional logical blueprint of fighting on the outside.
Throws it right out.
Instead, he executes this highly counterintuitive, smothering inside game. And he uses that claustrophobic phone booth pressure to mercilessly grind down a seasoned veteran who is simultaneously battling the neurological lag of ring rust, which eventually leads to a predicted late-round TKO through pure calculated attrition.
And, if we step back for a second, there is such a profound takeaway here for you listening, whether you spend your weekends watching combat sports or not.
Oh, absolutely.
This breakdown really reminds us that in any competitive environment business, creative pursuits, whatever field you operate in, having a strategic plan is everything. Understanding the true tactical keys to victory, accurately scouting your competition's mechanics, and brutally assessing your own rust or vulnerabilities, That is the foundational work.
That's where the game is won.
Exactly. That level of deep analysis is what separates a wild, emotional guess from a coldly calculated prediction.
It really is. It's about looking at the geometry of the problem and realizing the obvious answer might actually be a trap. Which honestly brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Something to mull over that really echoes beneath all the source material we looked at. We established right from the start that Fundora's most glaring, undeniable advantage is his towering 6'5" height. Yet his winning strategy essentially ignores that height in favor of a counterintuitive inside game. It really makes you wonder, does true strategic mastery actually lie in weaponizing the unexpected rather than just relying on your most obvious strength? Because, if you only ever do what the obvious laws of physics dictate you should do, maybe you just become completely predictable.